Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is once again directed by James Wan and is the sequel to 2018's Aquaman. It also serves as the final film of this iteration of the DCEU. In this film, Aquaman is now King of Atlantis, but he is struggling with a lot of the duties that come with that. Meanwhile, Black Manta is hunting down Aquaman to get revenge on him for killing his father. I've got to say, I really enjoyed the first Aquaman movie. Don't get me wrong, it's not a masterpiece, but it was really good fun. At the time it came out, it was exactly what the DCEU needed, and it ended up being a huge success. It was their only billion-dollar movie. There was part of me that was excited for Aquaman 2, but the marketing hasn't been great, and the studio has shown no confidence in this movie whatsoever. When the review embargo dropped for this movie, I was watching it. And bear in mind, I went to a public screening with a paying audience. I didn't see it at an advanced screening or anything like that. So I didn't know what to expect going into Aquaman 2. Let's start off with the pros. Firstly, just like the first film, I think this film is visually stunning. In both of these movies, James Wan clearly wants to make something bright and colourful, and he succeeds. This movie is just really nice to look at. And also, I think this movie does a really good job of standing on its own. It is first and foremost an Aquaman sequel. It's not really interested in being part of the bigger scope of the DC universe, and I really appreciated that. I think the best thing about this movie is the chemistry between Jason Momoa and Patrick Wilson. A lot of the second act especially revolves around this movie basically being a buddy comedy between them, and they have really entertaining chemistry. Therefore, I was pretty entertained in the second act just because of their chemistry alone. However, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is an extremely messy movie when it comes down to both the tone and the story. Let's talk about the story first. This screenplay has so many ideas and so many things it is trying to do, but they are trying to do too much in less than 2 hours. And credit where credit is due, this movie is just less than 2 hours excluding credits, and it feels closer to an hour and a half, to be honest. But it is too fast-paced. The movie never breathes, and therefore, because the movie's trying to do so much, every storyline ended up feeling half-baked. And also the tone, this movie does not know what it wants to be in terms of genre, because the first act deals with like underwater politics. The second act, as I said, is a buddy comedy. Then the third act is pretty much a superhero movie. And movies can mesh genres really well, but the issue with this film is that it never attempts to blend genres. Also, I mentioned the first act. The first act is pretty boring, actually. The underwater politics stuff reminded me of the Trade Federation stuff in the Star Wars prequels, and it was done better in the prequels. And finally, Black Manta is a wasted villain. I don't mean he's a drunk villain, he's just very underwhelming. His motivation here is just exactly the same motivation he had in the first movie. There's no attempt to give him anything new, there's no character arc, and maybe apart from one scene in the second act, he's not even menacing. Overall, Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is not a bad movie, it's just very disappointing considering it's a sequel to Aquaman, a film I really liked, and it's the final film of the DCEU. I'm going to give Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom a C+. Whether you've been a fan of the DCEU or you've hated it, there is one thing you cannot deny. It has been a ride. It has been a roller coaster. There have been ups, there have been downs, and at the end of the day, I'm kind of gonna miss it. However, saying that, I'm very excited to see what James Gunn and Peter Safran do with their new iteration of DC. So farewell DCU, it has been a journey. Guys, thank you so much for watching this video. You guys are awesome. Blu-ray Billy, logging off.